Hello, my name is Garrett Thielking, and this is my video presentation for Biology 234, Homework Assignment 1. We all contain multitudes. Every human on this planet is a traveling colony and collection of organisms that work together to create a whole being. We are each a walking collection of up to 100 trillion cells. Only about 30% of our total cellular makeup is human tissue. Bacteria live on our skin, teeth, and nails, but they really thrive in the gut. Bacteria have been assisting animal digestive systems for over 400 million years by helping us gain more energy and nutrition from food. Modern humans gain our first gut microbiome in the third trimester of fetal development. In fact, we can't efficiently digest breast milk without Bifidobacterium infantis, which allows us to digest human milk oligosaccharides. However, imbalances can occur if antibiotics are improperly prescribed or improperly used. Misuse contributes to the rise of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Competent gut and skin bacteria can share resistance genes with each other, leading to an overgrowth of the organism. Enterococcus faecalis is an extremely common core enterobacter that can overgrow if it develops antibiotic resistance. The resulting inflammation can cause the bacteria to enter the bloodstream, causing bacteremia and vegetative growth on our heart valves. It's a good lesson to not overuse antibiotics and to always take them in the exact manner prescribed. Thank you very much for listening.
The human microbiota with a focus on the oral ecosystem. The definition of human microbiota, according to Britannica, is the collection of microbial genomes that contribute to the genetic portrait or metagenome of a human, a remarkably diverse array of microorganisms that includes bacteria, archaea, fungi, and even some protozoans. The human biome. Core microbiota is the same for everyone, whereas variable microbiota differs from person to person. Factors that influence different bacteria are many, such as genetics, environment, diet, lifestyle, hormones, and industry. The eyes and skin microorganisms are more numerous on our skin. They are present in our eyes, although not as great due to tear wash. Male urinary and female urinary tracts and reproductive systems. Maintains pH and H2O2 production to kill microbes. Lower digestive tract prevents gastric complications, mostly anaerobic, some facultative anaerobes. Upper digestive tract aids in food digestion and health gateway to the rest of the body, warding off pathogens. All are necessary to ensure homeostasis of the host. Antony van Leeuwenhoek's contribution to microbiology. He made his own lenses and single lens microscopes. He had the most sophisticated lenses of the time that were able to magnify an image up to 200 times. He took 2 scrapings of his own teeth to discover bacteria he termed animalcules. The bacteria of the oral microbiota is extensive. There's over 700 species of bacteria, archaea, fungi, protozoa, and viruses in the mouth alone. Most bacteria are the same from person to person. And oral bacteria can also be altered by smoking, disease, pregnancy, alcohol, and antibiotic use, along with many other factors. Oral bacteria is responsible for, but not limited to, immunity, food digestion, inflammatory response, and tooth decay. Dental caries and biofilms. Dental caries is another way of saying cavities and is caused by a sugary diet, whereas a fiber and dairy-rich diet helps to fight dental caries. Regular cleanings will also help to avoid dental caries. Biofilms form on teeth and along gum lines, and they're self-sustained through water channels and nutrients through a process called quorum sensing. An acid is released and held to the surface of the teeth, which is the cause of tooth decay. Rathia mucilaginosa is a gram-positive cocci bacilli shape. It is microaerophilous and mesophilic around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, which makes sense seeing as how the human body is its home. and it contributes to biofilm formation in the oral cavity. And here's the information as far as domain, phylum, and so forth. And that is the end right there.
My presentation is on human intestinal microbiota. There are a trillion of microorganisms that shelter within our bodies. Many of them are bacteria, fungi, and viruses. Our bodies are ecosystems for entire communities of microbes. Microbiota are organisms found in specific environments. Around the body, you'll see a change in microorganisms and how they interact with one another. Microbes are essential to our health and normal flora. They protect us against pathogens, and they can also have negative impacts like illnesses. The gut flora is considered an essential organ. The more than 3,500 species of microbes in the gut aid us. Some microbes that are found in the intestines are Lactobacillus, Clostridium, and Streptococci. These microbes have immunosensory detection and help protect against pathogens and help mature the immune system. Clostridium is a resident bacteria of the intestinal microbiota. It is a gram-positive bacteria. It is a bacilli-shaped, and it does not need oxygen to survive, so it is anaerobic. This bacteria releases high levels of Bytrium, and it is a probiotic that helps suppress pathogens.
Microorganisms are the microscopic organisms that live in, on, and around us. These include bacteria, archaea, viruses, protists, and fungi. The microorganisms that live in and on us are referred to as the human microbiota. A few of the benefits that the human microbiota provides include increasing metabolic processes, getting nutrients and energy from our food, and aiding in digestion. They also keep us healthy by protecting us from harmful pathogens and helping our immune system. A normal amount of certain microorganisms in our body is very beneficial, but if they become unbalanced, we experience dysbiosis, which is when there are more pathogenic rather than symbiotic microorganisms in our body. This can lead to serious diseases. Our mouths house around 700 species of bacteria that exist symbiotically. The mouth is warm, moist, has a fairly neutral pH, and is rich in metabolites. Various microorganisms organize into biofilms in the mouth. A biofilm is an assembly of microorganisms in an extracellular matrix, better known as plaque. If we fail to brush our teeth or floss and have a bad diet, the microorganisms in our mouth become unbalanced and we may develop cavities, gum disease, and bad breath. An even bigger concern for the imbalance of microorganisms in the mouth is that oral bacteria can enter the bloodstream through the gums and lead to heart disease or diabetes. One of the most common microorganisms in the mouth is Streptococcus mutans. This microorganism was one of the initial colonizers in the mouth and lives naturally in the oral cavity, specifically in dental plaque. This microorganism is anaerobic, gram-positive, and uses glycolysis to produce energy. It is able to metabolize several carbohydrates. One unique characteristic of this microorganism is that it can survive a great amount of stress, including low pH. The main purpose of this microorganism is to add to the biofilm in the teeth, which also means it is a major contributor to tooth decay and cavities. Everyone has Streptococcus mutans in their mouth. If people brush their teeth and floss regularly, it is not harmful.
Hi, this is Forrest for the Microbes and Me Project 1. So individual humans host between 10 and 100 trillion microorganisms in our bodies that live in symbiotic relationship with us. They're primarily located in the digestive tract, but are present everywhere from our skin to our urethras. Our microbiota are deeply involved in the mucosal immune responses of our bodies, and a balanced microbiome is linked with health, and its imbalances linked with disease and inflammation. Antibiotics can be necessary to stop acute infections, but they also damage our microbiomes, and their use is also linked with inflammation and disease. The colon is a moist environment that's rich in organic matter and is comprised of 90% anaerobic bacteria, or it houses 90% anaerobic bacteria. One major function of the microbiota in our colon is to ferment dietary fibers from plants that we can't digest. The byproducts of this are short-chain fatty acids, which are beneficial and used by our bodies for energy, among other things. Bacteroides theta iota omicron is a common, well-studied bacteria. It's a gram-negative obligate anaerobe. It is able to digest a wide variety of dietary fibers, producing those short-chain fatty acids. And in one study, it was shown how this microbe, along with another symbiont, Lactobacillus johnsonii, are able to reduce the overgrowth of fungal species in the gut by degrading the fungal cell wall. Thank you.
Ever feel lonely, isolated, or misunderstood? There's no need with the trillions of microorganisms living in and on every part of our bodies. These are bacteria, yeast, fungi, and other eukarya, archaea, protozoa, and non-living viruses, making up the human microbiota. Our individual microbiome is unique to us, much like a fingerprint. The vast and complex gut microbiota is linked to immune function, digestion, pathogen protection, but if out of balance, also inflammatory diseases and infection. Although they take a little off the top, the bacteria found in our intestines is a primary worker in the breakdown of complex molecules like those of meats and vegetables. This kind of symbiotic relationship has been perfected and honed over thousands of years. Candida albicans is one of these microbes, which in small levels is beneficial for breaking down nutrients. It's a diploid gram-positive yeast typically inhabiting our gut but can also grow out of control, infecting the GI tract, oral cavity, or genitals. This overgrowth is referred to as candidiasis. Candida albicans is normally unicellular, but depending on the environment, it can actually switch into an invasive multicellular filamentous form. This ability to transition makes it a polymorphic fungus. It can even live aerobically or anaerobically, making it highly adaptable. Common expressions of infection include vaginal yeast infections, thrush, and diaper rash. Although severe and potentially fatal, invasive candidiasis can target your whole body: blood, bones, brain, and heart. Overgrowth is traditionally treated with antifungal medication, although a starvation protocol is also common by limiting foods that promote growth. An uptick in infections and growing resistance to antifungal drugs has brought attention to how little we understand about this yeast, shifting the medical community's focus to prevention, early diagnosis, and new treatments in cases of candidiasis.
So my microbe of choice is going to be Christensenella minuta in the gut microbiome. So to start out, in the human microbiota, basically everyone has their own specific microbiome that's catered specifically to them, and it's determined by things such as the environment, lifestyle choices, and genetics. The most abundant parts of the body of microbes are the vagina, gut, mouth, and skin. And each system has a couple of microbes that are exclusive to that system and perform certain functions, and looking at those can explain why someone might be having medical problems. The microbiome of the gut, most of the organisms that come in the gut are from the phylus Firmicute, Bacteroidetes, and Proteobacteria. And in the gut, those microorganisms help facilitate certain body functions such as digestion, absorption of nutrients, and various immune functions. And imbalances in the gut can cause or worsen certain medical conditions such as irritable bowel syndrome, can also explain things such as lactose intolerance and Crohn's disease. So the microbe of study is going to be Christensenella minuta, or C. minuta, and it's from the phyla Firmicutes and the genus Christensenella. It's a fairly new genus, so there are only 2 species that are known right now, and it's C. mesilensis and C. timonensis. It's bacilli-shaped and uratolerant, meaning it makes its own ATP via fermentation. It's hereditary and one of the markers of a healthy gut, and it's found in healthier individuals that they have a larger supply than those who have certain GI conditions or gut conditions and who are obese.
Microbial ubiquity refers to the way in which microbes are all around us. And as humans, we don't typically think about the trillions of microorganisms that live in us and on us. The human microbiota are the collection of microorganisms that inhabit the human body and their ecosystems. These include various forms of bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and viruses. The ecosystems included within the human microbiota include the respiratory system, gastrointestinal system, urogenital regions, the mouth, nasal cavity, eyes, and skin. An important concept to address when discussing the human microbiota is dysbiosis. Dysbiosis is the disruption in a microbiome that leads to imbalance in the microbiota. There are many things that influence the activity of microbiota in the human body. These include antibiotics, which fight against pathogenic bacteria but also hinder beneficial bacteria, which can lead to dysbiosis. Other external factors that impact the presence and activity of microbiota in the human body include various pollutants, medicines, and pesticides, which are known as xenobiotic factors, as well as age, genetics, and diet of the host. The skin of a human body represents a protective barrier from the exterior environment and is considered the largest organ of the human body. Forms of microbiota present in this microbiome include bacteria, fungi, viruses, and mites. These groups inhabit the dry, cool, and acidic environment of the skin. Propionibacterium acnes is a bacteria that hinders the growth of pathogenic bacteria on the skin. Demodex mites are found on the face and can lead to itching, rosacea, and other disorders. Malassezia are yeasts that contribute to a majority of the fungal population of the skin. Staphylococcus epidermidis are gram-positive, facultative, anaerobic bacteria. They are beneficial and also pathogenic to the skin. This bacteria causes hospital-based infection through catheters and devices, but it also plays a beneficial role in immune response of the skin.
To the consternation of many, trillions of microbes colonize the human body, outnumbering every single germ and somatic cell added together, and then some. These microscopic organisms make up the human microbiota, a complexly balanced community that impacts all facets of our health. Several communities of microbiota exist in the body, including on our largest organ, the skin. Covering 1.8 meters square of acidic area, the microbiota inhabit a diverse world of microclimates ranging from dry surfaces to humid folds, webbing, and creases. There's an intricate interplay between the skin's abiotic features and its bacteria, archaea, fungi, viruses, and even microscopic mites in order to maintain homeostasis. The lipophilic Propionibacterium acnes breaks down sebum to produce an acidic environment that keeps pathogens like Staphylococcus aureus in check. Staphylococcus epidermidis, Staphylococcus aureus's less infamous cousin, is ubiquitous in the skin's microbiome. This gram-positive facultative anaerobe was once thought to be nothing more than a benign commensal microbe. As the field of research grows, scientists are finding that not only is it important for inhibiting the biofilm development and thus proliferation of Staphylococcus aureus, it also appears to rival its cousin as the cause of hospital-acquired infection with similar antibiotic resistance. A good reminder of the nascency of this field and the need for continued investigation.
Hi, my name is Echo, and this is my presentation on microbes and me. The term microbiota refers to the microorganisms, including bacteria, fungi, parasites, and viruses that live in a specific environment like the human body. A healthy microbiota maintains a balance between beneficial microorganisms and harmful pathogens. It functions to support the immune system, aids in the synthesis of vitamins, and works to defend against harmful pathogens. Sometimes this balance can be disrupted, leading to susceptibility of illness by overuse of antibiotics or sanitizers. Antibiotics and sanitizers work to destroy harmful bacteria, but in turn can destroy some of the beneficial bacteria within our bodies, weakening our defense against illness-causing pathogens. The human gut microbiota is a moist and highly acidic environment. It is home to many species of healthy bacteria and varies in composition from person to person. Some of the factors that influence the composition of the gut microbiota include diet, use of medication, age, and disease. One of the main groups of bacteria that can be found in the gut are Bacteroides. Bacteroides break down large food molecules and convert them into energy for use by the body and other resident microbes of the gut. One specific type of Bacteroides is Bacteroides fragilis. It is a gram-negative and anaerobic bacteria that presents in rod-shaped bacilli. Bacteroides fragilis is a beneficial member of the gut microbiota, but it is considered pathogenic if introduced to other areas of the body. It can sometimes enter the bloodstream after disruption of barrier function resulting from surgery or overuse of antibiotics, causing serious infection.
Hey everybody, my name is Kendall and I'm going to talk about the microbiome, and me homework. I chose to look at the gut specifically. So obviously the gut's really important. It's very complex and has a lot to do with our immune health. It's a very acidic and moist environment where they do a lot with nutrients and vitamins that are important to our health. Major families are bacteriids and firmicutes. They play a big role in nutrients and vitamins. They can have negative interactions by competing for nutrients and attachment sites between each other, but also other pathogens that are bad, so it can be good and bad. They have good interactions by being able to process the same things at the same time under the same condition, so that processes that need to happen are still happening. If you have an imbalance in your GI tract or in your gut, I mean, you can get diseases such as IBS, IBD, or other GI issues. And so the microbiome of the gut is super important for overall health and can have different complications. I looked at firmicutes specifically, and they're butyrate producing bacteria. This helps with being the main energy source for your colon cells. It supports your immune system, reduces inflammation, and prevents diseases. This can help in many different ways. So it's a really big and like dietary fiber and maintaining human homeostasis. So it's really important that breakdown and utilization of dietary fibers. So it plays a large part in the colon and making sure everything is broken down and ready and prepared to go like through the colon process and then through to, your bowel movement and creating that so that you don't have stomach pains and gas and, diarrhea and constipation. It's kind of really helpful in aiding in all of those kinds of things. So yeah, if you have those imbalances of this type of bacteria, it's you're likely to have diarrhea or to have constipation and like IBS and all those sorts of things. So like not fun stuff. So it's really important to just make sure it's always balanced or to be able to, all of that. So all in all, it's really important to keep all of your microbiomes in balance and they all work together to create and make sure that the human body is functioning as much as it can, as best as it can. Thanks.
Microbes and microbiomes are everywhere all around us at all times, including the human body, but most of these microbes in the human body are actually beneficial to the human hosts, as they are the first line of defense against infections. An imbalance in the bacteria in these microbiomes, like an overgrowth or an introduced invasive pathogen, can disrupt the overall health of the hosts. An example is a yeast infection, which is just an overgrowth of the fungus called Candida. It's present all over the body, but in more common areas like the stomach, skin, and vagina, it can cause an infection if it's overgrown. Antibiotics are medications that kill or stop the growth of microbes and are used to kill these types of overgrowths. But they kill not only the bad bacteria but also the good bacteria because they just kill everything. And so that's why some people take probiotics while recovering from antibiotics to support the health and numbers of the helpful bacteria. The vagina has its own advanced microbiome that is a mutualistic association with the host. The nutrients used by the microbes in the microbiome are just from shed cells or gland secretions from the vagina. This microbiome protects the host from a variety of infections, including urinary tract infections, yeast infections, bacterial vaginosis, and STIs. The vaginal environment is acidic and rich in metabolites. The acidity protects it from invasive bacterial growth, while the fatty acid metabolites protect the host from pathogens by being a chemical barrier. Lactobacillus genera of bacteria is the most common bacteria in the vagina. They are gram-positive rods that thrive in the anaerobic environment. They are aerotolerant anaerobes that do not need oxygen and use fermentation to metabolize their glucose into ATP. Anaerobic fermentation of glucose ends up producing lactate, which lowers the pH of the vaginal environments and prevents invasive bacteria from growing. Other microbial compounds produced by the lactobacilli are lactic acid and hydrogen peroxide, which both also protect the environments from invasive pathogens.
If an alien visited Earth, they would take some notes of humans, but would probably spend most of their time trying to understand the dominant form of life on our planet, microorganisms like viruses and bacteria. What most of us don't realize is how much of our body is alive, not in the sense of our respiration, organs, and our personalities, but what is microscopically inside of us that we aren't inherently born with. We acquire a microbiota after birth that consists of trillions of microorganisms within us. Our microbiota is critical to our health and wellness. The gut microbiome acts as a gatekeeper and trains T cells to decipher if an immune response is needed to try and protect the body from illness. There are a plethora of benefits from having all of these microorganisms inside of us, like digestion and energy production, but there's also a lot of things that can impact our microbiome, listed below. The integumentary system, the largest organ of the body, has a vast microbiome. Skin can be sebaceous, rich in sebum, creating more room for bacteria to thrive. Dry skin, however, promotes a more diverse microbiome. Common microbiota found on the skin are Staphylococcus aureus, Micrococcus luteus, and Staphylococcus epidermidis. These microbiomes interact with each other through mutualistic association and commensal interactions. Borrelia burgdorferi is the microorganism that causes Lyme disease. You become infected by this bacterium through the bite of a tick. Borrelia is a gram-negative bacterial species of the spirochete class in the genus Borrelia. When bit by a tick, this bacterium stimulates an inflammatory response. Lyme disease is one of the fastest growing infections in the country.
A report on the human microbiome, specifically on hands, and even more specifically on the microbiota on the skin. So just to summarize, like the human microbiome, and especially like looking at the skin, what happens is that the skin has to endure many environments, especially on the hands. Sometimes your palms are really wet, sometimes they're really dry, sometimes you're sticking your hand like in the rain, sometimes like you're in heat, and so the microbiota on your hands have to be really tough. In this example here, I have a beautiful cat named Lovely, and one of her pastimes is when you clean the litter box, rolling around, and of course I love this cat, so I have to pet her, of course. And all of her little microorganisms that are resident and also transient get on my hands. And so I have microbiota, we all have microbiota that can help us endure the pathogenic qualities of some of these foreign microbes and keep us healthy. So looking at the hands in particular, it's found that there are about 150 on average microorganisms living on the hands as on any given day. Of course, there's a lot of change because our hands are always transferring microorganisms from hand to person, and these are the most common that are found on the hands. Looking specifically at one of the most common that's found on the hands is the Staphylococcus epidermis, and it's in the Staphylococci family, which has some pathogenic legends that live in it. You've probably, and then another thing about Staphylococcus is that it's named Staphylococcus because it comes from this Greek word staphylou, which means bunch of grapes. And if you look at them under the microscope, they look like a bunch of grapes. And one of the things that Staphylococcus epidermis does is that it's thought to outcompete other pathogens. One of them is this really prevalent one, especially in medical settings, called Staphylococcus aureus, which you usually hear as MRSA, which can cause sinusitis, food poisoning, just like that. And but there's a paradoxical quality in that Staphylococcus epidermis fights MRSA, but if left, especially like in medical and hospital settings, if left to fester, especially on implants and on catheters, it can form a biofilm, which actually does give serious infections to humans. So it's both helpful and it can be pathogenic, but we should be grateful for it anyways. Thank you.
The adult human body has about 10 to 40 billion cells, and scientists estimate that 10 times the amount of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms reside on the body. The microbes make up the microbiota. They provide protection against invading pathogens and therefore play a major role in immune protection. The microbes within the GI tract is called the gut microbiome and is important for overall health because it breaks down essential nutrients, drug metabolism, and immune development. Clostridium difficile can be found in the intestinal tract. In the healthcare field, both the bacteria and the disease are commonly referred to as C. diff. C. diff is a gram-positive anaerobic bacteria with capacity for endospores. Within a healthy gut microbiota, C. diff can be found in small amounts suppressed by more dominant anaerobes which prevent overgrowth or colonization. However, in large amounts, C. diff can cause an infection, which can lead to diarrhea, cramps, and the development of colitis, and potentially severe cases can lead to death. So you might think about C. diff's presence in a healthy gut microbiota as a small gathering, and then C. diff infection as a high school house party. Like in the movie Mean Girls, she thought she was hosting a small gathering, but it turned into a raging party. So in small amounts, it's okay, large amounts, not so much. When there is damage or changes to the gut microbiota, imbalances in the bacteria allow C. diff to take over. This can happen with the use of broad-spectrum antibiotics. C. diff is contagious, and hospital-based infections are common as C. diff is resistant to alcohol-based cleaners. Traditionally considered an infection affecting patients in healthcare facilities, C. diff is now increasingly identified in community among people with no recent hospitalization or stay in healthcare facilities.
Hi, my name is Rodé. The ecosystem I chose was the gastrointestinal tract. I wanted to start off my presentation with a quick video that I think introduces the topic a little bit.
The gut microbiome refers to the bacteria in our gastrointestinal tract, and they exist in a mutualistic state, providing us with health benefits in exchange for a safe place to live. Our gut harbors a diverse community of intricately linked microbes, which efficiently utilize all available nutrients, thus preventing pathogenic bacteria from invading the gastrointestinal tract. However, this healthy community can be tipped out of balance.
So the gut is majorly composed of viruses and bacteria, with a small percentage of fungi and archaea. These are some examples of bacteria. So the first three are healthy bacteria, and these three are pathogenic. So this photo is of a specific microbe, E. coli. It's healthy and it lives in the gut. This species falls into the phylum Proteobacteria. It's an anaerobe, which means that it doesn't require oxygen to live. This is its flagellar arrangement over here. Some of the specific functions of E. coli include producing vitamin K and B12 and the fermentation of pyruvate into ATP. So what this means is that the bacteria is providing some energy for the body to use during metabolism. And this is that same species under a microscope. As you can see, it's rod-shaped and
The human microbiota is an ecological community of commensal, symbiotic, and pathogenic microorganisms living on the human body and plays a key role in health and immunity. This can change throughout your life based off of various factors. There are various ways a microbiomes are shaped during life, starting at birth from the mode of delivery all the way up until environmental effect. Anything that goes on or in our bodies can affect this microbiota. By the age of 3 years old, children develop a microbiota that resembles an adult's. The benefits of the human microbiome may include aiding in digestion of potentially toxic food compounds, synthesizing certain minerals and amino acids, and stimulating the immune system for essential homeostatic function. The role of the microbiota specific to the gut is critical in host nutrient metabolization, structural integrity, maintenance of the gut mucosal barrier, and prevention of pathogenic microorganism colonization of the intestinal barrier. The nasal cavity and nares are a moist environment and slightly alkaline in healthy individuals with a pH of approximately 5 to 6.5. By nature, the nasal cavity has limited metabolic nutrients and space available for microbes as opposed to a habitat such as the stomach, which is rich in metabolites. Although Staphylococcus aureus is often associated with infection and are known to be an opportunistically pathogenic, it usually functions as a commensal microorganism. Staphylococcus aureus is a facultative aerobe and is also a non-spore-forming, gram-positive spherical bacteria that form in pairs and clusters. Thank you.
Hello, this is Cassandra Carroll, and this is my Microbes and Me Homework 1 project. So what is the human microbiome? The human microbiome consists of all the microbes that exist on and within us. It is tailored to the individual and as in a healthy individual acts as a line of defense against pathogenic organisms. That being said, any disruption of that microbiota, such as with use of broad spectrum antibiotics, can have negative effects on our health. With the skin microbiome, the skin is the largest organism of the human body. There are very multiple environments on the skin that give rise to different microorganisms. So the moist regions, we have Staphylococcus and Corynebacterium primarily. In sebaceous regions, we have Cutibacterium. And in dry regions, which is actually the most diverse region of the skin, has Actinobacteria, Proteobacteria, Firmicutes, and Bacteroidetes. Interestingly, with the skin, interactions with the environment and the skin is actually essential to the development of the immune system. One of the microorganisms I focused on was Cutibacterium acnes, which is the causative agent of acne. It is gram-positive and lipophilic in nature. It is an aerotolerant anaerobe, so it can survive brief periods of time in oxygenated environments, but primarily enjoys anaerobic environments. It normally lives on healthy skin, but when we have overactive sebaceous glands, usually due to hormonal reasons, it creates areas of hypoxia on the skin, and because it is an anaerobe, leads to excessive growth of C. acnes, which causes that classic inflammation, which results in the acne appearance.
Hello, my name is Raquel Rubio. This is my Microbes in Me project. The microbiota are organisms that live in your body. Each person has around 10 to 100 trillion microorganisms in their bodies, and they're important because they help with digestion, they regulate our immune response, they help with vitamin production, and protect us against disease. Disruptions in your microbiota leads to diseases such as obesity, diabetes, and inflammatory bowel disease. Outside factors such as stress, diet, probiotics, drugs, and antibiotics can have an impact on your gut microbiome. It is important to be aware of what you put in your body and how you handle outside factors. Your gut microbiota are microorganisms that live in the digestive tract. We have about 100 trillion microorganisms in the GI tract, and they are mostly bacteria and archaea. They play a large role in our digestion, immune response, and metabolism. Foods impact gut health, such as fiber, which is good for you as it helps restore your gut health and prevent inflammation. And sweeteners and processed foods lower your microbiodiversity, which can lead to disease. The genus I want to focus on is Bifidobacteria. They are a group of bacteria called probiotics. They live in your stomach and intestines. They help digest dietary fiber, prevent infection, and they produce vitamins. They also help with preventing toxins from entering your blood. This is how it looks like under a microscope. They are gram-positive, rod-shaped, and anaerobic. Foods that help this type of bacteria grow are fermented foods such as sauerkraut, miso, kimchi, whole grain foods, high-fiber foods, polyphenols such as green tea and wine, and prebiotic foods. It is important to add these to your diet to produce more of this bacteria and improve your gut health. Thank you.
Hello, this is Microbes in Me by Samantha Simmons. Our gut bugs. The human microbiome begins when we are born. We are first exposed to microbes in the birth canal and through our mother's breast milk. These microbes will stay with us for our lifetime, growing into a unique system of over 100 trillion bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and viruses, vital to maintaining our health. Our microbiota have many functions, some of which are vitamin and amino acid synthesis, immune system support, and metabolism regulation. The oral cavity is the second largest and diverse microbiota in the body after the gut, with over 700 different species of bacteria. In a 2007 article published by the National Library of Medicine, Jorn Oz and others conducted a study on the bacteria of dental caries or cavities in 90 separate subjects. They concluded that some oral bacteria are site-specific and some are subject-specific. I've included some examples on the screen, such as S. mitis and G. ideations. They were found in most areas of the oral cavity, whereas S. sanguinus was found on the teeth, and there were numerous Prevotella species found in some people, whereas not in others. Since their discovery by Antoine van Leeuwenhoek in the 1700s, there have been over 250 species of oral microbes that have been isolated in culture and characterized, one of which is Streptococci. Streptococci belong to the phylum Firmicutes. They are gram-positive spherical bacteria. Some will have long, sparse fibrils along their cell surface, but this is highly variable among different species. There are also 6 different groups: Mitis, Anginosus, Salivarius, mutans, bovis, and pyrogenic. They are also facultative anaerobes and mesophiles. They generally will possess low pathogenic potential, and they can also constitute more than 50% of a healthy oral microbiota, although they are known to cause odontofacial infections, brain abscesses, and infective endocarditis. Thank you.
To summarize the microbiome as a whole, it's important to know just how large it is. So to put it in perspective, the human microbiota consists of 10 to 100 trillion symbiotic microbial cells that can be found on and within us. They do a lot for us, actually. They stimulate our immune system, break down toxins in our food, synthesize vitamins, and promote digestive health. So imbalances can cause some pretty serious illnesses. The specific ecosystem I chose to focus on was the GI tract. I found the biggest abiotic factors are pH, ITT, and stool consistency. The main inhabitants are listed on the screen. The interactions that these microbes have with their environment is mainly based on our diet, especially because the food we eat is what provides these microorganisms their nutrients, and they interact with each other by passing on genetic material. The imbalances in the microbiota of the gut can lead to IBS, IBD, and even increase the risk of obesity. But positive impacts of the microbiota in the gut are that they aid in digestion and synthesize essential vitamins. The microorganism that I chose to focus on is pictured on the screen, and I also have it listed. It's said to be one of the first bacteria to colonize in the GI tract. What it does is it ferments sugars into lactic acid in the intestines. It's gram-positive, anaerobic, and it's from the phylum Actinobacteria. It's a really important probiotic, and it helps with intestinal homeostasis. And its role in its ecosystem is to aid in digestion, and it can actually break down non-digestible plant polymers for us. Okay, so that was the summary of my homework. Thank you guys for listening.
Hey, my name is Miles, and this is going to be my microbial ubiquity and the oral cavity project. So to begin, basically the microbiome is the complex interaction of trillions of microorganisms that live in and on us and sometimes help and work against us. But basically, all of the various organisms compose the unique arrangement that is our organism. The complex moving parts that is us. And to address what microbial ubiquity means, basically it means that these microorganisms exist everywhere, all around us. Even if we can't necessarily see them, they are there, and they, help compose a very delicate balance in our, unique system. For example, in our gut, this balance of bacteria is maintained where there's a large amount of harmless bacteria, ideally, and that outweighs the ability for the harmful bacteria to propagate and thrive. And that, comes with an array of positive benefits, like good digestion and positive metabolism, where the flip side, if you have too many harmful bacteria, rather, you're going to have difficulty digesting, and you're not going to be able to, get certain nutrients. So moving on to my specific area, I focus on the microbiome of the oral cavity, and the reason is because bacteria thrive here. It's dark, it's moist, and it has a stable pH of about 7. And so the temperature is just right, about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and bacteria love that. And to focus on the one that I picked specifically, this is one of the first bacteria that colonizes our body after we are birthed. And Streptococcus salivarius is very important because it is introduced to our body so early in our life cycle. We have a very commensal relationship with this bacteria in terms that it is relatively harmless most of the time, and it helps actually give us various benefits by keeping the population of pathogenic, harmful bacteria pretty low. And this maintains, good breath and positive oral hygiene, and yeah, many other benefits. So this is my project. Thank you.